People
Welcome
for
back.
the longer intro. PFI, people for long or PFLI, people for a longer intro.
Is this still the intro?
Is this still the intro? Exactly. Yes.
Still
I'm just
on,
kidding,
boy.
Kev. Kev shortened our intro because people tune out too quickly, but I miss it. We got to play it occasionally. Maybe what we should do, Kev, can we play it like in the middle of the show at halftime?
I don't know, man. We'll have to talk about that. We'll
I
have to
mean,
look into that.
this
For
still
Jason.
is
Yeah, I
the
feel bad for
intro.
Jason. The theme song doesn't get played anymore.
You guys should do
Welcome.
like a 40-minute soft open.
Yeah, exactly. It's our Yem second set opener here. Like we'll just go. You never know when it's gonna end.
Welcome back to wook+live. I am the Great Wen, joined by T and Benjy Eisen. Benjy, if you don't know, is manager of several of the jam band's bigger names and a Phish aficionado. He's been hanging around the scene since the mid-'90s. How we doing, Benjy?
Never better, Kevin. Good to see both of you. I always love coming on here. So just because even if it wasn't a program, I'd want to be talking to you guys in my living room about the same shit.
Exactly. Always fun talking to you. I'm glad you can make it. This is great.
So it's almost like we have a new band. What are your first thoughts after watching the first 4 shows, Benjy?
Well, you know, it reminds me of there was a time in 1.0 where I felt like every tour they were a new band, you know, and then they kind of got away from that for a while. And I think 4.0 they did that a little bit. Like 4.0 they came out, they were definitely a new band, and then it was definitely 4.0 versus 3.0, and then like every tour since 4.0 they've done stuff where they have, you know, you can point to certain things about certain, even in 3.0 there's the Whale era, you know, the Plinko Jam era, stuff like that. And so I mean they're always evolving, but I think it's a really promising start. I mean, we can talk about how much Trey's guitar or the configuration on stage plays into it, but one of the things that I was thinking about after last night is that my favorite Phish shows and Phish tours was when not only were the shows consistently good, but they would have this thing where every night told a story. You know, it's like, how do you determine one show from the next? Well, there's the OJ show, right? Like, and there's Game Hoist, and every night there's like something about it where you're like, you know, you can say a title and you know that, and they got rid of that. And so now when you talk about a great show, you talk about, oh yeah, the Hollywood Bowl had a great jam here, and this was great, and the Ether Edge, and you talk about what songs were great, but like, or it was a great show overall, but there's not really a story. Here we've had a few stories. We had the Tweezer Jam, you know, Tweezer Fest, and then of course, you know, last night also these shows started to feel like they were like chapters in a story.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's a good point because it's been a while since we've been able to label a show outside of like a Tweezer Fest or anything like that. And then, you know, or like a Gym Fest or something like that. That's just sort of a fest type thing. You haven't really had a show that gets a label. So, I mean, last night deserves a label, I think. I don't know, between the bust outs in the first set and the jams in the second set. I mean, even the jams in the first set with that gumbo and walls to close it was fantastic. So, I mean, it was.
I don't know if we need a label. I don't know if we need a label.
Just night 4.
Well, I would say the show that had the what's going through your mind from summer tour 25 is how I guess I would phrase it, or the Pittsburgh what's going through your mind, maybe. Even though I'm not too sure about that either. That seems a very goosey thing to do.
I think it would just probably end up being Pittsburgh 2025, but you know.
Right, yes, exactly. You mentioned the configuration. Let's get into that, because when we found out, we even went on and did a microdose about it when we first saw the picture before the first show, and I really do think it's opened up whole new worlds. I found it fascinating, Mike saying that after the Sphere and him moving the amps off stage, it allowed them to go back to this configuration because he didn't have all that noise behind him.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also funny from an aesthetic standpoint. I mean, I don't know if Trey's platform serves a purpose other than the fact that I imagine, being involved with discussions like this with Trey actually for Fairly Well and other things like that, I know how sometimes it goes, and so I'm speculating, but my guess is that when you put them close together, it looks lopsided, and so you need some symmetry, right? You can't have it. I mean, Mike was up higher before, but he was far enough away
Right.
that it didn't really
The
register.
optics, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then when they're right next to each other, you kind of need that. And if that's the case, then I think it's funny because then that would mean that Mike has a fake backline. So that so that it matches Trey's real backline, and Trey has a fake platform because of Mike's plat. So that, they kind of each have a fake something to match the other.
Right.
It's funny.
Old school, like going back to being doing theater in high school. You just gotta like make it work.
Yeah. And then Trey brought out his rug. I don't think he did. Did he have it last night? I think he got I think he brought it out for like one night.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Which is a funny thing for us to notice and talk about because I mean that's what Phish dorks do. But like he had that rug that he taped on top of the platform, but I don't know if it stuck.
I don't know
And that
Oh,
if that's the case, that's a tactile thing, because he always plays on that rug.
Right. And we got the new guitar the first night, I guess, for the first set, and then the second set brought out Marmar. I can't tell the difference between how the guitars sound. I know some people say that, and maybe it just has more to do with the internal parts of the guitars, like how the effects work with them and things like that. But do you hear differences between these guitars, either one of you?
Minute. It's more about how he plays them, and I think though that if you were to hear it without amplification, you could argue that the wood makes a difference because it's koa versus maple, and then and also allegedly some spruce, right? But with maple's the traditional guitar wood, and then koa is pretty popular as well. But so there's that, and I feel like it's probably the way that just the way it feels and the way that he plays it, but. I wonder if having the koa 1.5, which he calls it, the new one. So that's made from the same wood that the original koa was made, and that guitar came out in 1996. And I feel like these first 4 shows, I'd have to dig in and put my Zizits hat on, but I feel like there were a lot of songs played the first 4 nights that came from that era. Where he was I wonder, because it's like muscle memory, and you're playing this guitar, and you're like, oh yeah, we used to always play this song, and so it's there's been a lot of 90, 8,
Rift heavy, a lot of rift heavy.
Yeah, the one
a lot
night.
of rift heavy. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
And Billy Breathes too. Stuff from Billy Breathes, which Billy Breathes came out in, was it 1996 or 1997?
Yeah.
And that's when this guitar came to be. So that makes a lot of sense.
And I think that's what's so exciting. That's been so exciting about these first 4 shows too, is it feels, it has that old feel to it, like the sound, the guitar, the songs, the way they're playing, the jams, the lineup that they're in now. It feels so, and I say it every night to Kevin, I'm like, I forgot they're in the line tonight, but as soon as I see it, I'm so happy because that's how I remember, that's Phish to me and how I remember seeing them. And so it's so exciting to be yes, back in the formation. That's great.
And then it's smaller. It feels so much smaller, like they're in a living room. You see them looking over at each other, smiling,
it doesn't feel spaced out, or it feels more intimate. And that's how kind of the jams have felt too. It just felt a lot tighter and closer. It used to, it's cool to see. And
I mean, you can see it physically between Trey and Mike because they weren't communicating that, they were communicating musically, but they were so far apart before, and now that they're back next to each other, they're checking in a lot more, and they're also playing off each other a lot more. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a huge difference, and with them all in a line, there's something to be said about, when bands rehearse, you're usually in some type of formation, like a semicircle or even a full circle, so that you can see so that everyone can see each other all at once. And and also going to your point, that's the Phish I remember too.
Right.
There's Fishman side and not
Page
Mike's
side.
It's Page side and Phish side.
Yeah.
And with them all in formation like that.
It's always been so weird to me to have Mike on the outside and be like Mike's side or Page side. I'm like, it's so weird. No, Phish is supposed to be on the outside.
Right.
It's supposed to be Phish side or Page side. It's just always so weird to me. And it's just always felt
or it's
awkward.
Phil's side or Brent's side.
Well, it's always Phil's side.
But but it's also with the communication. I mean, it used to be like when Trey would get frustrated, he'd look back at Fishman, and you would always see him like looking back. And now it's gonna be, you know, maybe
That was just a look over.
Yeah. Now he doesn't need to be as frustrated as much because he can just give him that evil eye. You know. But,
or that
yeah,
smile
I
and
think
that
it really,
crack up.
yeah, but I think they're having a lot of fun because I mean, at heart they love each other and they love having the music. Musically, they also love each other, and it's with the communication lines being that open, you know, it creates these intimate moments, like you guys were saying.
It's fantastic, and I think that also inspired a lot of some of the bust outs the other night and some of the playing that we got. And it's been, yeah, I can't wait for. It's also nice, I guess. Kevin and I were talking about last night the off nights they have now and the spaces between shows that they've really put into this tour. You know, it's a little bit more because it's not as condensed as like April was for spring tour, so it didn't need to be as bang bang bang. But this one's a little more spread out, and they have like multiple days off here, multiple days off after Austin to get to Colorado, multiple days. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see that they have a little bit of rest time in between, and it's not just go 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 all the time. And I think that, especially with Trey's voice at times, helps a lot with things. So
yeah,
his voice being shot, I think, has led to some extraordinary jams because he just can't sing as much.
Well, there's that. There's also you know, the first night was really where we saw. I mean, previously we've seen his voice have issues, you know, on a nightly basis at some points. But now I feel like he blew it out the first night, probably because he was so excited and he had a lot of those songs. And I don't think maybe setlist they were accounting for that. And now not only is it the long jams, but also now Mike is gonna sing a song in the first set. Paige is gonna sing a song in the first set. Kind of as it should be. And, you know, whereas with Phish, I'm speculating that was a discussion or that was a thought. With Dead and Company, I know that, like, the way that Bob Weir will have a hoarse voice at the end of the night, if certain songs happen early on. Like, if he can't do Sugar Magnolia in the first set, it means the second set he's gonna be hoarse. You know, and
right.
So I think and he's got some years on Trey, so I think he learned that.
Right.
And or, you know, Matt Bush really knew that. And whoever.
Yeah, no one more Saturday night. He said that he couldn't put one more Saturday night in the first set. It had to be an encore because Bobby was going to blow his voice out singing it.
Yeah, and that's part of the genius of Matt Bush, by the way. But without him there and without that, then you have a hoarse Bobby. And I think with Trey, you know, Bob has years on Trey, and I think that Trey, you know, who looks up to Bob, probably is taking a cue from that and learning. Yeah, you have to have your two other bandmates that can sing, three if you count Fishman. You know, bandmates can sing. You might as well, you know, give them especially in the first set, give them each a song and hopefully have a few 40-minute jams.
Exactly. Hey, Kev, what do you think? It was voice shot because it was recent.
Probably, yeah. Hanging out with that, I really think hanging out with those guys and hearing Gorilla Toss out in the barn rehearsing their new album for well over a year, they were in and out of there. I think that's influenced Trey in the back of his head a little because it's
energized him a little too, having them around and doing that. Kind of got
bunch of young people, his future son-in-law hanging out.
Yeah, and Trey's always wanted to be a punk rocker. He's always wanted, you know, he wanted to be in Pavement, which isn't punk, that's, you know, indie, but he's always flirted with that and even that show that he had in Burlington called New York, where he got to be in a punk band for one night. You know, Trey wants so badly to be in a punk band, but he just doesn't have the angst. You know, right. It's like that the super happy punk.
I want more of that. You know, I mean, it's, you know, with all the love and light, you need a little dose of FU. I think
joy punk.
You know?
Yeah, joy punk. Yeah. But I mean, but you know, from New York, we got from the band, the one time only band New York, that had some legitimate punkish players in it. We got Saw It Again was one of the songs that come out of that. Which isn't punk, but it's like, you know, Trey trying to be punk.
Yeah, it's, you know, on that.
I had an unlabeled filler on a tape of 2 or 3 songs from that show. It's the only thing I've ever heard of it, and it did not sound good. Like it was a chorus of snakes on top of it. You know, it was a 10th gen or something.
Well, they did like the 15th generation. They did My Bloody Valentine song. that night. And so, I mean, that was when Trey got to really play with feedback, and it's from an era where I'm sure that Trey probably doesn't even remember it. And it definitely let him get his little, you know, distortion punch chops out. But it never felt authentic with him, you know, just because, you know, he doesn't have that, he doesn't, just like you can't play blues if you're, you know, if you don't have the blues. And so he plays punch, but like, it's like, it's punch, but like it doesn't come across as, you know, like Titus Andronicus or you know, like
kind of like that picture of John and Yoko from the bed in when they're standing next to the bed while the maid remakes the bed for them. That's kind of like punk rock for rich people.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Trey always wants it, and of course he's always wanted to play with Stephen Malkmus. I'm sure that was like, you know, that's a dream come true for him.
It would be fun to see a punk Phish cover band. You know how we have like Jazz's Phish and those kind of things, and turn Phish songs into kind of punk, have a little heavier, and kind of give them. And some of those songs, like you said, like Saw It Again and like Carini and like
Big Glad Furry Creatures from Mars.
Yeah, like there's a few in there that you could play that would be fun, like, you know, even fast and like speed them up and like, punk it out.
Riff would work. You might have to dumb the music down a little for Riff, turn it into 3 chords, but the lyrics work as a punk song.
Fucking take Farmhouse into a punk song, man. Like take something crazy and turn it into like that'd be a fun fucking cover band. That'd be fun.
A friend of mine, Jake Sivanowski, who for those who know, used to work at the Wetlands and then worked with the Disco Biscuits and does the Rots Off boat cruises. He has a heavy metal Grateful Dead cover band called Truckin' that I encourage everybody to check out.
Awesome. There you go.
That's it's like pure metal. Even the logo looks like it should be Motley Crue or Dokken. And let me see. I think they spell Truckin' a little differently, but like
I interviewed that guy. He was really cool. He was talking about how Karina Reichman, when she was little, when she was younger, interviewed with him. I mean, interned with him, and he played in a band with her that was more metal kind of thing. And I was like, you definitely know that Karina likes that metal.
Oh yeah,
and that punk.
That's awesome. I love it. That's great.
All right, people are asking about the Tramp.
I just put it up. The Tramp.
Oh, okay, yeah. The Tray almost fell.
I thought it was it's amazing that hasn't happened already. It's amazing that out of, you know, hundreds of yems that they've had maybe some small mishaps with choreography where Mike and Trey aren't perfectly in sync, but they've never had a Tramp's mishap. And like how, especially when they were intoxicated, like how is that? And the closest that I can think of it was when Trey broke his leg in '94, and before the tour, and had to play the tour, had to play part of the spring '94, and had to have other people like Dave Matthews came on stage just to do the trampoline.
Do the trampoline, right?
And they had some fans do it too.
Right, Vegas in 2004. He had a misstep and he got angry about it. I mean, obviously that Vegas run in spring of 2004 was from hell.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember. I was there. I don't remember that mishap, but the whole thing was a mishap. So.
Yeah, exactly. It was all one giant mishap.
So that totally tracks. But I was thinking last night, you know, as they're getting older, and as like, you know, they're you know, jumping around on a trampoline would be, let's just say, less reliable, you know, for them as they're getting older. I could see them outsourcing the Tramps jams by doing like a Divided Sky fund, you know, for a raffle for who gets to do the trampolines tonight, you know.
Totally.
That it become a fan thing, because you know, Tramps is a younger man's game, I guess.
Yeah, and it's I agree. It's always amazing that it's never ended tragically.
Yeah, but I think maybe since you've beaten the odds, maybe you do retire it before one day Trey snaps the neck on his guitar or something.
Yeah, or like breaks an ankle or something like that. I mean, as you get older, you have to consider these. On the other hand, Phish has defied every convention yet. So let them be jumping
Let
on a
them do
trampoline.
it.
They're 103 years old.
Well, and that's it. It's almost routine now. Like taking it away, I don't think would do anything. And he's got the wire is always what bothers, like scares you the most. You know, is like how it doesn't get in his foot or whatever. Because he always does that one time where he has to flip it before he does the one. So you're always like, But yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I think
why
last
isn't
night
he
that was probably a
wireless?
part of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you why he's not
That
wireless.
song.
And I mean, you'd have to ask him, but I'll tell you why I'm pretty sure he's wireless. Because you lose some fidelity, and Trey is such a single signal to ratio guy. So with his guitar effects, he used to talk about in the guitar world and stuff like that in the '90s. He'd say how every time that you go through a new effect pedal, it loses a little bit of the fidelity. And so that's why he's had his linear dots created so that he has a splitter so he can to have the signal go straight to the amp, or when he wants to use effects, then he can flip it and then it goes through.
Go to the pedal,
and the reason it goes direct is because that's the best sound you're gonna get. And Trey, as we know, he spends hours and hours and hours and days and days and days just obsessing over his sound and his tone. And a wireless pack makes it, it's like the difference between doing a podcast on a microphone and doing a podcast on your iPad microphone. It loses something.
Definitely. Back to the punk thing a little bit. We were talking about the sounds. I think he did kind of nail it with everyone was mentioning what's going through your mind last night. But if you go back to the twist, we had that same, part phrasing, whatever, the same part of the jam where it got spacey, it fell apart, it got noise and just, really filthy stuff. And I hope that keeps showing up. I hope this is the tour of filth.
So me too, Kev, in a big way. And you mentioned the twist, and then it was the third tweezer. They did it again. And so every single night from the first night, there's been a Space Jam, and that takes me back to predating the Koa 1.0 guitar, takes me back to summer of 95, but in the summer of 95, they did these amazing Space Jams in David Bowie's and tweezers, and they got really ambient and spacey to the point where you can't even really dance to it, but it was just kind of really far out there. And then now, hearing them return to that in the past, this past week, but with all the new toys that they have, with the line sits, bleeps and bloops, and all the special effects and just the much, more, I want to say modern, but also retro, more expensive equipment than they were on in '95, and evolved. It's really cool because they're taking that, the ethos of they'll be in like a really cool dancing tweezer jam, and then all of a sudden it goes into like Space Jam is really the only, it's ambient jamming, but it's not really even ambient because it's not just ambience. There's notes in there, and there's funk in there, and there's
it sounded a little to me at times almost like when the Dead would be going into Other One, but they hadn't landed on Other One yet, and Bobby was just banging away on his guitar kind of thing. I really got vibes like that out of some of it. I really like this threezer, as opposed to people were calling it man cheeser, and I was like, that's cheese-y.
The threezer is great. Threezer is great. I'll stick to that. And talking about the first tweezer, we can kind of do away with. When you go back, it's tweezer 2 and tweezer 3 from that night, were the keepers. But yeah, I feel like also with the Space Jam and the ambience, I feel like my friends for a while were questioning me by what I said, how they still do question this when I say that Phish was actually musically influenced by the Residents, but you listen to the Residents and you put on Phish and you're like, I don't see it. Yeah, because their songs are nothing alike. The Residents are haunted house music. For like a really bad janky haunted house that you don't want to be in, but that's in the Space Jam. Then you hear this gurgle, and when you hear this gurgling and stuff like that, that was that girl, which for Phish is kind of often too the connector between songs. There'll be a little, rather than just stopping or rather than jamming, there's gurgling and ambience and noise, and that's straight from a Resident. I mean, what to Phish's gurgling noise was the Residents' greatest hits.
The gurgling noise.
So let me ask you, how's Billy doing?
Billy's doing okay. He's doing well. Everyone wants to know about Golden Gate Park, which I'm not going to talk about, but Billy's doing well, and he's looking forward to a lot of things to come.
Nice. All right. What about your other people? Holly Bowling, I got to catch her set at Northland. She was artist at large. She's really fantastic. Everybody out there, if you haven't checked out her solo stuff with just the piano, I really thought Sunday Morning was great that they put her on first thing. But you said she's playing High Sierra, huh?
She's playing High Sierra, and Reed Mathis, who's another one of my guys, is playing High Sierra, and they both are doing some really cool stuff. But Kevin, it was great before we started today when we started talking about Northlands. I'm glad you caught, her sit-ins, because that's people. I think if they know Holly and they know one of the things she does, they don't often know like the full scope of what she does, and so they see her solo piano shows, which are definitely, I know that you love the Sunday gospel vibe, and I think that's great for a festival. For a club, when she goes, it's one of those things where you want to have it be seated and pin drop, the mentality of, hey, I'm not going to go drinking with my friends. I'm going out to watch, a classical music recital, really, and but a classical music recital that might have a Tahoe tweezer in it, But at the festivals, yeah, I think the gospel set, and you were there. I mean, tell me how the gospel set went over. And we say gospel, all I mean is that a Sunday opener
Right.
playing.
The crowd. It looked like there were quite a few people. I watched it. I watched the stream. It looked like there were quite a few people in the crowd. I love the way she sets up instead of being like caddy corner or something like that. She put the keyboard right front, facing out in front of the people. I mean, opened up with Silent in the Morning. Great little nod there, who are Silent in the Morning. But then she did a bird song into Famous Mockingbird that was sublime. I would never think to put the two songs together. And you couldn't tell when she stopped one and started the other. You were just all of a sudden, hey, wait, she's playing Famous Mockingbird.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I was telling you before we started here tonight, when she did High Sierra last year and it was 107 degrees heat, she opened up with his ice, which also was a brilliant move. The type of stuff we always want Phish to do, and we're always like talking about in the lot. And Phish is the greatest band in the world, but they're not always the coolest band in the world. If they were, they would do stuff like that.
Lean into that a little more. That's great that she does. I like that.
Maybe, some people would say it's on the nose, but it's not. It's maybe dad jokes of jam bands or something like that.
Right.
But I'm here for it.
We've been watching the High Sierra thing closely. We saw a report that they might not even do it last week, and then they decided to do it. How down he was. I mean, nothing against anybody who's on the bill, but there isn't a Dead and Company or something like that name to bring people in.
Well, that and do you think Phish playing over the 4th has pulled some of the crowd out of that or pulled away from that?
There's two factors. There's multiple factors, but the two that I see is exactly what you said. Boulder. Phish usually plays Colorado during Labor Day weekend, and it's often they granted they just did this West Coast show, which we were at, the West Coast tour rather, but it's oftentimes Colorado's the closest west that they get for a while. So everybody from California, Colorado is a hop, skip, and jump away. And so you have more people coming from California to Ditz than you have people coming from the East Coast to Ditz. And so I feel that pulled some away. Also, Dead and Company at Golden Gate Park, with the ticket prices being so absolutely highway robbery, unjust, totally ridiculous. For not GD Sid Steve, but for Dead and Company, it's absolutely it's ridiculous. But that is its own thing. We can put a little pin in that. But what I mean by that is it's taken away from High Sierra sales and from from a lot of California events and things like that. People are saying they're saying that
these days you can only afford to go see Dead and Company for $600 for 3 days, or go to a festival. You can't do both.
You can't do both. And Dead and Company for $600 for 3 days is,
it's crazy. And I think that actually is why a lot of the other festivals, like everything's just down, because it's hard this year. Summer's hard this year because there's two big events. I mean, Phish in Boulder for the 4th, and then Dead and Company in August. So it's like you have, even with that, you kind of choose which one you want to do for the summer. And then the other festivals that you usually do are like, well, if we're doing that, we're not going to do High Sierra this year. Or we're not going to do whatever the other ones are. So I mean, we've seen it like across the board.
Yeah, and
down numbers.
And Phish is half the price of Dead and Company, and twice the band, but half the price as I did not say that, but half the price as Dead and Company, but then they played something like Hollywood Bowl where it is expensive, you know, because you have to cover rent there, and so it does get expensive, and those tickets can get over $200, you know, at face value. And so I definitely think that, but $600 for a weekend of Dead and Company in the park definitely takes away from High Sierra, because High Sierra's #1 demographic, or their biggest, you know, group of people come from the Bay Area.
Right, and they're older heads, so
yeah. And on top of that, Kevin, you mentioned that there's no, you know, heavy hitters. And that's true. You know, Daniel Donato, I mean, who's a friend of mine and who I love dearly, is maybe like the biggest headliner, and I love him dearly, but I would never be like,
AOL is big, but AOL isn't a band that a lot of deadheads probably are like, yeah, that's going to get me in the door, you know.
And AOL plays early on Thursday, is their slot, like early on Thursday, so a lot of people don't end up going to Friday. It's really heavy on Brad and Andrew Barr, who are two musicians that I think are two of the greatest musicians of our lifetime, with the Barr brothers, the Slip, Surprising Mr. Davis, and they're doing all of those, but those guys don't really pull in numbers. They're just like, those are the Slip was like you know, if you talk to Krasno about his favorite band, or you talk to Tom Hamilton about his favorite, they'll tell you the Slip, and they'll say Brad Barr is their favorite guitarist. But like, he's not selling, you know, they're not really selling tickets as an anchor for a festival. Now, High Sierra was always their kind of home festival. They for many years, the Slip was the one band that was there every single year. And because it's a Bay Area crowd, and because the Slip, their biggest base is probably, well, it's probably Boston and San Francisco. But you have that. But then, you know, the other big headliners, Molly Tuttle, you know, and Everyone Orchestra, and then
her new band, I got to see them at Mountain Jam last weekend. They did the whole stream on volume.com. Shout out to volume.com. Check them out. They are fantastic. My God, the third time I guess these people played live together. Obviously they've rehearsed, but they were just so spot on, a bunch of new tunes. And then toward the end of their set, she took off her wig. I never realized that she had alopecia and she was bald, and she performed the last two songs, you know, without the wig on. And I was just like, you go, girl. You just, that's a power move to bust out.
She loves to do that, and more power to her, you know, for doing that. But I think, you know, I worked with her. We did a Billy and the Kids show together, and it was the same off stage as it was on stage. She got to rehearsal and she had a wig on, and we all knew, that those are wigs, and we had all seen her bald before, you know, in pictures and whatnot. But it was like she got there in a wig, and then I think she put on a different one at one point when we took a break, and then walked out of her dressing room, you know, as is, without a wig. And like, maybe it's something, you know, with her just like getting whatever it is that she, you know, her own internal process. But I love the fact that she, you know, that she, you know, is brave about it.
Right. And fantastic. I'll just shout out that they did She's a Rainbow, which is a psychedelic Stones tune with the harpsichord and all that. And they did it as the, you know, more bluegrass acoustic model. And I really felt like it was a chance for everyone to shine. I think that's a good entry point for people, because they'll know the song. And then you're going to want to listen to the next song,
and
you know?
She's underrated at this point compared to, you know, her contemporaries with Billy Strings and other bluegrass.
Well, people were having heart attacks about her leaving bluegrass, and this still was a little bluegrass, but it was a little more forward thinking, I guess.
Yeah. Well, when she did with Billy and the Kids, I got to, since I got to do that set list, I had a little fun with it and with her, and that it was a set list trick, in that it was China Cat, and then into Sunflower, but Harry Styles Sunflower.
Nice.
And which she led on, and she was just, she got there. She was such a good sport about it. She asked me several times, like, she's like, "Are you sure? Really? This one, everyone wants to do it?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know that everyone wants to do it, but I'm gonna make them." And it was awesome. It was. I mean, she's such a phenomenal musician. Her improvisational chops are great, and she belongs right up there next to Billy Strings.
I did catch them, Michael. I mean, I watched the whole thing. God help me. I watched it after Phish because Volume was quick getting the whole show up so you could watch it later. And no, I do not know how to pronounce that word. Krungbin, I think is how it's pronounced. They were fun. I'd never seen a set of theirs. They reminded me of this band Balthus, but people have told me that Balthus should remind me of them. I have it backwards. My old frame of reference was this other band who do the cumbia kind of thing.
And Kronva, they wear wigs too.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, they're another wig band. This is and between them and Bertha, I feel like we're entering the age of wigs. You just don't know what's real anymore.
That's right.
Just can't trust what you see anymore.
Wait, well, T, what was that thing you sent me? The Velvet Hammer or some? There's a Spotify band that looks like a jam band, but it's completely AI generated.
And the conspiracy theory is that Spotify started it because then they have to pay less royalties.
Oh, well,
apparently there's a ton of them. Yeah, it's called the Velvet Sundown, and
Sundown. Okay.
Yeah, they have it's like they're fucking it's like totally AI thing, but it has 302,000 monthly listeners, which is insane.
And they have like fake photos where it looks like humans. That's
what
threw me off.
On Spotify, like a full-on fake band photo, and that's like all AI generated.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're gonna be AI, then like have have like some image of like adds ones and zeros, or like have a matrix thing or something like that.
Yeah, we joked a long time ago about making a fake band. I remember, and like putting up a whole fake thing. Puffin.
Because it's a bird name.
Now on tour with gorillas.
Puffin, and now you can just do it on AI and actually make money off it.
I wrote a whole script up of a Scooby-Doo type show, and the band was called Puffin in it, and instead of a dog, there was a llama.
Was it a ghost llama?
It could have been. Probably the thinking was down the road there would have been an episode with a ghost llama because they were like Scooby-Doo trying to figure out a mystery.
Slow llama. Or let's talk about that llama the other night. That was neither slow nor fast.
Well, slow llama could be like, what was the other one? Who was the cousin? Scooby-Doo's cousin. That white dog that he had with him.
No, I don't
remember. Was Scrappy Dumb or Scooby Dumb?
Yeah, Scrappy too. That's right. And Scrappy
that
too.
Could be Slow Llama. Could be Scooby Dumb. Oh man. Right. So let me ask you broader about festivals, because Bonnaroo, you saw what happened. They tried to give people 75% back. They had to backtrack, give it 100. Then they sent a survey out asking, would it be better every other year? Would it be better if they moved it to the fall? What do you think of the future of these corporate festivals as opposed to something like Acoustic Hookah does, that has a bunch of bands you've never heard of in Acoustic Hookah, but seems more like the true spirit of a festival to me, maybe?
Well, bringing this around for a second to High Sierra, one of my favorite things about it is that without the headliners, without the major headers, like that was what sold tickets, and this year proved that. But to me, that never sold the tickets, because to me the headliners were always the ones that I blew off. Like there'd be the headliner playing in the main fair, like on the main stage, and that's usually the time that I was like taking a shower at the RV or getting ready for all night long, until sunrise kickball, But to me, like the greatest thing about music well, there's a few great things about music festivals. I mean, obviously, I think the appeal is that you get to see all the bands that you're listening to and like all in one weekend. But and take away that and take away the social element, I think it's music discovery, right? And that like you walk by a stage and there's a band that you never heard before, and that's the band that you end up loving, for the next year. or becoming a lifelong fan of, for that matter.
Yep.
And some of my favorite bands I discovered that way, and even some of my not favorite bands, but like at High Sierra, I discovered Sturgill Simpson playing a little small set in front of 200 people, and Pretty Lights playing in front of 50 people in a tent, and stuff like that. And so I think that the major rock festivals are missing that heart, because now they're all so cookie cutter and so corporate that it doesn't matter if you're in Chicago or if you're in Austin for ACL. C3 puts on both Lollapalooza and ACL, and they look in some ways very similar, and Outside Lands and Bonnaroo and you just have these mega festivals, and now that there are 2 weekends in each market, it feels very impersonal, which is the world that we're kind of entering now. And with AI, we're getting into a more and more impersonal world. But as far as Bonnaroo goes, I don't think they come back from this. I mean, it's gonna be hard.
Right, because it's what in 2020 they canceled, obviously COVID. 21 they canceled because of flooding. This year they canceled. So out of the past 5 years, 6 years, they've only done half the festivals.
It's not a good it's not a good batting average, and what makes the difference is that if that was Outside Lands or another festival, Lollapalooza, a festival that is in a city, even ACL, a festival that's in a city or near a city, there's less of a risk because the bulk of that audience is coming from within 50 miles. And if it's canceled, okay, that sucks. But, hey, they can't control the weather, But with Bonnaroo, you're flying into Nashville, Tennessee, and then renting an RV and driving, or else you're driving, 12 to 15 hours from the Northeast, or however many hours it is from Atlanta, 8 hours, whatever that is. That therefore it becomes a much bigger. It's just a curveball, like a curveball. Like I lost. It wasn't that I wasn't pissed because it didn't happen because they can't control. I was pissed because I lost like $2,000 or something on it between flights and the RV and the supplies, and like it's just like it becomes you don't want to take that type of risk. And Bonnaroo, once people see it as a risk, they're gonna think twice before buying plane tickets.
And it's been so hard, like it's happened so often for them, lately, and not turning a profit forever. Like it's not a good situation. It sucks. But I think to your point, like in the city, yes, because you're in a hotel too. Like you're not stranded somewhere out in the middle of nowhere camping, or like in cars, in mud and shit. Like you can run to a hotel, and hopefully bands can still play like the House of Blues or like other things around there that weekend or whatever. Kind of like what they did in Nashville with a lot of the Bonnaroo things. But if you weren't going back to Nashville, you're still kind of fucked. You weren't going, if you drive back to Atlanta or whatever, it doesn't do any good. So
yeah, and you rented the RV, and you might get a refund, a partial refund or a refund on your ticket. You're not getting your refund from the RV. You're not getting your refund from the hundreds of dollars of supplies you spent, or the flights, or anything like that. And so Bonnaroo's kind of become like Oasis or Ryan Adams. Like you don't know if the show's gonna happen, and if it does, you don't know that the show's gonna stick around to the finish.
What do you think though? What do you think though? Like Kev said about like niche, but even like Phish, doing their own festival.
Yeah, can anyone replicate that of single band playing for days on end at a festival?
And does Phish do another one? I mean, was it successful enough to try and do another one with the way everything is now? Do you do that? I mean, I don't know. Like
there's less incentive for Phish to do it, because it used to be that they one, not that everything comes down to money, but they would make a lot of money on their festivals. Now they make that money at Mexico, and if they play Atlantic City on the boardwalk, they make that kind of money. And I'm sure Folsom, I don't know, maybe. But besides the financial element to it, it's such a big undertaking, and Phish, doesn't have a great batting average when 2 of their 10 festivals, it got canceled. And so I think that I've always advocated for. I know that I'm shouting this into the wind and it will never happen, but I loved it when Phish tried to do Indio. I think that they did it too soon after they came back, so it wasn't a success, because at that point they didn't have the draw for it. I think if they did it in Indio now, they would have a better turnout. Still not going to be the numbers that are on Monty Green, but they would have, they could get 40,000 people, to Indio. The reason why I'm such a big fan of that play is it's not going to be canceled. It's going to be 72 and sunny no matter what. no matter what.
Because even Mondegreen, we had to deal with a Bonnaroo situation where we got shorted that set and got out of there, and the wind and the rain and everything came in, and then it was, it was crazy getting out of there for that whole situation too.
Where's my refund?
Yeah, we got lucky that Mondegreen wasn't flat out canceled. Like that it didn't happen the night before, and that Sunday wasn't canceled entirely. And if that was the first time that there was a weather scare, then okay, cool. But like they've had festivals canceled because of doing it in the Northeast in the summer. Yeah, and it's like Phish is like, okay, let's do it again.
So do you need to move festivals into September, October space because it's cooler and the weather might be more predictable?
Just have I think festival capital of the world. India.
I think like Benjy said, like let them do, summer tour can be like a majority of these shows are indoors as it is anyway. So you can do summer tours indoors and stuff, and then do Halloween festival at Indio again. Like just make that a thing. Like make that where you do that, like, and that ends, and then you do MSG at the end of the year, and then you're back to Mexico at the beginning of the year, and then maybe spring tour, maybe summer, and then you kind of put that on there because, to your point, October out here is even fantastic. Like usually that's our warmest. September, October, where we get the warmest weather sometimes with like the winds and stuff. So it's a win.
The Santa Ana's.
Santa Ana wins. Outdoor Phish belongs in California, and despite the fact that everybody in Phish Nation will disagree with me on that, because I would have disagreed when I lived in Pennsylvania. But not only that, but if you notice, and maybe a way to kind of mitigate this is that this tour has been this tour is in the summer, and so far it's been entirely indoors. Mm-hmm. And then it moves to Austin, where it's still going to be indoors. And Folsom will be mid-tour. Folsom will be the first outdoor Phish show of the summer, and because it's in Colorado, it will probably rain for.
You'll probably get a thunderstorm and a hailstorm, and like it'll be crazy for at least probably one day.
For, one set will be moved, or one show might be extra. One show might end up being one long set, or something like that, and then. It's risky. It's just risky.
Yeah. How about this? Indoor Phish is better than outdoor Phish, and I'm glad that they did the summer tour mostly indoors.
Yeah, I agree. I think arena Phish is where it's at. Lights go down. Arena Phish is where it's at, unless it's at the Hollywood Bowl, or unless it's a festival in Indio. Unless like there's lots of exceptions for it.
The Gorge. There's a few outdoor places.
The Gorge. There's exceptions.
Mostly though, to your point, Benjy, on the West Coast.
That's what I was going to say. Most of the exceptions are West Coast.
Colorado and West.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the last couple Labor Day weekends in Colorado, there was rain.
Shorted with the sets. Yeah, completely.
If it rains in California, it's not, despite some local being like, oh my God, this is the worst weather I've ever seen. Anyone from New York is like, this is like a light drizzle at most. No thunder, no lightning.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, we rarely get the thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So I agree. It'd be fun. I'm surprised they never came back to do a festival there. Because again, the infrastructure's there. Like somebody pointed out in the chat, and they run it now so much with Coachella, Stagecoach, and everything that they do. It's so easy. Like it would be no problem. Like it's there.
Yeah. Conjurers of Thunder.
Conjurers of Thunder.
So
I mean, when we do Wook Fest, Kev, we're gonna have to do somewhere out west. The
Wook out.
The Wook out. It's got to be out west.
We wanted to do it in Amish country. I thought we were going to do it in Amish country. Make everybody put their cell phones on the edge of the property.
That's right. Loopholes. The good old Amish loophole.
I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, they're playing Pennsylvania twice this tour. That's all. I find that interesting. Pittsburgh, and then the man. I think Pittsburgh, man, Tuesday night. You knew that was coming. I think you should have known it was coming, because nobody's driving from New Hampshire to Austin. So if you were going to Pittsburgh, you specifically were just going there for the one night,
Well, also when Phish played Pittsburgh in the past, in the summertime, it was at Star Lake, which is like 20,000, close to 20,000, and. Right. And when they played indoors, they played in the Igloo, which off the top of my head would have been somewhere between 16 to 20,000, and instead they played the newer Peterson Center, which is 12,000, maybe 13,000.
2019, that show, the 2019 winter tour show, fall tour
Yeah.
show was fantastic there.
Yeah, this was their third show there, but they downsized in Pittsburgh, which is also interesting.
12,000. That's a good size for it.
Yeah.
It's a perfect size for them. That's similar to what, that's what all 4 shows have been so far, because Manchester was like 12,000, I think. 11,000 or 12,000.
All right. They are opening for
Dave
Matthews, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting.
One,
Their first
one of his
time.
3 nights.
All right. Goose is playing Madison Square Garden this weekend, and it's sold out. But then I saw something today where Oasis has all of a sudden found more tickets for their sold out shows.
Well, like I said, Oasis is kind of like Bonnaroo in the summer. Like, will it happen? Will he actually play? Stay tuned.
Morrissey's a good one for not doing a show. We're playing
Morrissey
a song
and Ryan Adams. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Guns N' Roses, for that matter. Guns N' Roses 1.0.
Right. So
modern day Guns N' Roses is just about business.
It's just
I know we're loving. I know we want to see all the shows, but I think that the one I have my eye on next is not Austin this weekend. I think they'll be good, but when Columbus comes up after Boulder, I think that's going to be another Pittsburgh situation. If you're going to Columbus, you're specifically driving there for the night.
That's why I said, because those one-off shows, those are the 2 that are
And Columbus has Sid's 2294 going for it. One of the greatest shows in Phish history, and one of the greatest improvisational segments that I can think of for Phish. And so, Trey, I don't know if he still does this, but Kevin Shapiro, their archivist, would always give Trey notes before every show saying, historically here you did this. That's why I was surprised that there wasn't a maze in Pittsburgh, because usually Pittsburgh has a maze. Probably because Phish did it one time in '93, I want to say, where there's a train that was going through, and Maze was perfectly synced up to the train. And Trey talked about that in interviews for a while, and then ever since then, when they played Pittsburgh, they almost always would do a maze. And so, you go back to Columbus, scene of the crime, for that Iculus, that was just so ridiculous. No pun intended. And I feel like that could be in the cards. And Kevin, it has all the makings of something great. But so does Austin. Austin indoors in the summer, in a market they haven't played for 10 years. I think that this weekend has some good potential.
All right, what do you want to talk about Sunday set 1, Jason? What was so special about Sunday set 1?
Let's pull it up.
He's bringing it up, and I'm like drawing a total blank.
So first of all, they opened up with that goddamn American traditional ritual, which is hot dogs, Budweiser, and a runaway gym opener. Doesn't get more goddamn American than that. And then Oblivion,
my friend Egg in a Hole was probably the standout. It got filthy. It got nasty. Oh, it was perfect. Okay, Jason.
The llama, Fast Enough, Wedge.
The llama was, like, as I alluded to earlier, it was neither a slow llama nor it was technically a normal llama, but it was a little bit. It was Trey and Sitsti llama.
I thought it was great, and then what was with it? I'm gonna have to pull it up again.
Pebbles and Marbles also had some, as an expression that I first learned on here, some extra mustard.
Yes,
and Fast Enough for You. That was the other thing. This is the set that had 3 songs from Rift in it, and then the second set had another. No, the second set had Mercury. Was the Mercury Night, but that's crazy that and then I guess the other thing was Jim and Curtin With both came into the repertoire around the same time as a lot of that riff stuff. I think they might have even been recorded for those sessions, or they attempted to.
They attempted to. There's a tape of demos where they had it, or they laid it down on the demo going into Rift. I forget.
But of the 3 newer songs that you're getting that night, really, with Oblivion and Egg in a Hole and Pillow Jets, You take those any day of the week as far as the new songs, you know what I mean? And a jammed out Oblivion that you finally got. So, you know,
that second set was interesting that they bookended all the Mercury, which is a newer tune, and obviously Pillow Jets, with all that Tweezer stuff. It was
well, the other thing that made this Tweezer Fest, or this Threezer stand out, was that in the past, first you have the Bomb Factory in '94, which was of course the very first Tweezer Fest, and then you've had a number of them since. There's a Merriweather one, and it's almost just
one
like
at the Man.
Yeah, and just like when they do a Sunday show when they're out of gas and they play Cross-Eyed and Painless, and then throughout the rest of the set they have Still Waiting. You know, with Tweezer Fest, it got to a point where sometimes it seems like, oh well, we want tonight to be special, and our ideas aren't carrying themselves, and so let's have something let's just, you know, pull a trick out of a hat and let's go back in the Tweezer lick. This wasn't that though, because when they went back into Tweezer, usually historically, when you go a Bomb Factory was a big exception, but usually when you go back into Tweezer, it's for a minute or two. You're bringing back up that theme, and then you're going.
That's how that Merriweather was.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, and it's almost, and also the Met in Philadelphia, you know, and it is it's almost, you know, from out of their bag of tricks. And here, these three Tweezers were all standalone Tweezers that could each lengthwise stand up on their own. I mean, there's that third Tweezer was as long as any, you know, almost any Tweezer from 1.0.
And that jam was just like, it felt like it was in the middle of a Tweezer jam. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of came in and settled right in the middle of a jam. You're like, oh, we're right back into this. Oh, okay. What? Like, it was so, yeah, it was crazy.
No, I know that we are in a time period where there's lots of stuff for us to worry about between World War III and AI taking over and a president that's doing, you know, destroying the country. But my biggest concern right now is, at this moment, is how do you do the times for that Tweezer? Was it a 21-minute Tweezer followed by, you know, the two others, or do you stack them all up and say it was over 40 minutes?
A 42-minute Tweezer. I think that the common practice, common wisdom is that they all count as separate timings because they were not together. But I thought the same thing when I looked at it. I was like, oh, they did 40-some minutes of Tweezer tonight, you know?
I mean, at some point when Phish fans completely, you know, well, after a regime change in America, and then Phish fans take over popular culture, there will be a Jeopardy question about it, asking it, you know, if there's ever a time in which they did a 21-minute Tweezer, but yet they played 42 minutes of Tweezer.
Right, you'd be like, oh, well, that means they had to have gone into something out of something.
Yeah,
yeah. I think that Scott Marks said that what's going through your mind last night was the 6th longest song ever. And no, it should not count as 3 stats, Jason, because
it counts as 1.
I have like, I look at my thing and it says I have all these Tweezers, and I saw the Merriweather. I saw one at the Man at Tweezer Fest that is 8 Tweezers together when it should only be counted as 2.
Yeah, no, it's, you can't have 8 Tweezers in 2 shows. You just can't. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. Now, reprises, I will count all the reprises separately. Like that one night at Merriweather, they opened with Reprise, then closed the first set with it, and then I think in the second set they did a third reprise because they were all separate instances of the song, start, end, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, there's they did the Tweezer reprises. You're right; those count as full ones. But much to my girlfriend's chagrin, this one is where we had a bet about the timing, and I said that it would be 21 minutes, and it's 21 minutes.
21 minutes.
And that's where it stands. That's where it stands today.
No. All right. Anything you're promoting at the moment, Benjy, you want to throw out?
Democracy.
Well, you got the High Sierra. You got the High Sierra thing coming up with Reed and Holly both being there. Do either one of them have anything else on the? Reed's playing in Austin this weekend, isn't he, with Joe Marcinek?
Yes, that's right. And tomorrow there should be an announcement that involves both Holly and Reed, and about maybe 50 other musicians that you like.
We Are the World, or were they going to redo We Are the World?
They are not gonna do that, but yeah, it'll be announced tomorrow, and it'll be pretty exciting.
Cool.
And it has all the hallmarks of something great, including Pete Shapiro's stamp on it.
Nice.
There you go. All right. You know, you're going to have to come back on sooner than later with us again. It's always a pleasure, Benjy. Just, you're a wealth of knowledge, man. I always walk away learning something.
I always, like I was saying before, I love talking to you guys, because I mean, if I wasn't talking to you guys on my laptop, it'd be like I'd want to be smoking a joint and having the same conversations anyway. So
exactly.
As the tour progresses, maybe we can do some tour analysis stuff, because that stuff is my jam.
Yeah, maybe after we'll have you come back on.
What do you see? What do you see ahead for the tour? What do you think's like? How do you see what do you think? As far as coming off these 4 nights and now going to Austin and Boulder and then Ohio.
And what to look for? Well, I think that they've established, and maybe, as we were saying, maybe it was Trey's guitars, the inspiration or whatever. I think or his voice for that matter, but we've established that this is going to be a tour where we're going to get a lot of improvisation. Now they came out, you know, in 1998, 1997, and throughout the 90s, you never would say, oh, well, they've been so consistent, and now and we're waiting for them to drop. They didn't drop a show back then. Now, of course, you know, like you want to get the good one, and so there's always that balance. But so far, you know, they're it's an undefeated season so far. It's been 4 out of 4, and they were they were able to make it through both sets with a lot of energy, including, you know, even that fourth quarter where they drop off. They haven't been doing that. They've been putting, you know, Trey's been, well, all of them really. Maybe it's the configuration as well. But now's the interesting point, because they have out the gates running, you know, which they spend weeks and months waiting for, you know, to just get back out there. And so you have the jitters and you have the excitement. Then that wears off, and then oftentimes there's an energetic, you know, oftentimes in modern times there's an energetic drop off. But as Kevin said earlier, they now have this week off until Friday, you know, 2 days off, and then Austin will be interesting. It's indoors. I'm expecting Austin to really bring the heat,
be fire,
to bring that Texan heat, and then my guess is they fly home before you know, Folsom, which kind of makes a whole reset. And so we'll see what, you know, they don't really have that luxury. Usually when they take a week off, it's because it's leading up to Halloween, and they're gonna have, you know,
or Dick's or something,
or Dick's or something like that. But you know, or a festival. But even with festivals, though, they don't really take that much off. So we'll see what that reset's gonna look like.
What do you think? What do you think they're gonna do for the 4th? Because we know it'll probably be the drone show, because we've had reports of the drones practicing out in Boulder and stuff. What do you think they're gonna do to, like, just post show, kind of like what the Dead did, or like, will they play something to it? You know, will it be something?
Bring back the Baby Elephant March.
Yeah, it might be.
With drones.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but they played 4th of July shows with fireworks in the past, you know, a number of times. And I remember that I want to say Run Like an Antelope for a while was their fireworks song, you know, and at their festivals, or Susie Greenberg. And so, I mean, I remember Old Orchard Ballpark in Maine, where they did, in 94, where they did the fireworks, and then Atlanta one year for 4th of July. So I imagine it'll be more like that. And my guess is that it's coordinated with them being on stage, because that's, you know, that's one of Phish's
doing a Star Spangled Banner, like how he always does, like I'll sing long at New Year's and launch the drones and do a little.
Maybe they do an instrumental Star Spangled Banner a la Hendrix.
Bust into a little U.S. blues.
Yeah. I mean, and Folsom, because of the sheer size of Folsom, and it's fish out of water and ballparks like that, that's not a ballpark, that's a stadium. But when they play these big spaces, they can revert to festival Phish, where they're playing tight, they're playing energetic, and they're playing well. But the 3 of us would never go back and listen to it, because it doesn't offer anything new. It's just going to be, you know, Character Zero and First Tube, and, you know, and some big hits, you know, and
Stadium
I'm sure,
Phish.
Stadium Phish, exactly right. And you know, I'm expecting, and not that like I want this, but I'm expecting, you know, and I hope for everyone there that I'm sure if you're on the ground there, you're not going to have a bad time. You know, it's going to be
Definitely.
great. But you can establish that if you go, you have a great, just like people going to Golden Gate Park for Dead and Company. You're going to have a great time.
Exactly.
If you take the
It's
right things and you're around the right people, you're going to have a great time no matter what. You know, and I think that'll
totally.
be fulsome. I'd be very surprised if when we do a tour wrap up, if any of those 3 shows make it to our, you know, best of tour.
Totally. Yeah, I would agree.
I think that they can make it through this weekend with no
I do
repeats.
too,
We got
'cause, you know,
Simple, Sand, Jaboo,
and like we were
Chonka.
talking about, and like Benji brought up, they haven't had that downer show, which I know Pittsburgh could have gone either way. It could have been that show that we got, or it could have been that show where you get a lot of those other songs that you've been kind of like pacing for. So, and we haven't gotten that yet. It's been all fire. So hopefully that continues. But there's a lot. Sand, Jen, Jaboo, there's a lot on the table to get through in the next 2 days. And then I think, to your point, Benji, when the reset happens, I think everything comes back on the table to run through the
No Ruby Waves yet. No Ruby Waves yet.
The jam vehicle. So we'll see. But yeah. Awesome takes, Benji. It's always a pleasure, man. It's great hearing from you.
Always a pleasure, guys. Always.
If you're watching later, make sure you like, subscribe, think about becoming a member. We do halftime shows, member hangs on Friday or Monday mornings. I do a member hang show too. So check that out. And we will see you after the show on Friday. Have a good one, guys. Hang out, Benji, so we can get the recording uploaded.
And just hang out in general.
And to hang out.
Yeah. You know.
This is the member part of it.
The green room hang.
Sit, Ubu, sit.